Right now in theaters all across the world, cinema has once again gifted us something pure. A brand new Jason Statham movie called Mutiny. And the premise of Mutiny is a masterclass in modern cinematic poetry. Jason Statham plays a man named Cole Reed, whose billionaire industrialist boss gets murdered right in front of him. Naturally, Statham gets framed for the crime, escapes custody, and boards a massive international cargo ship to single-handedly beat the living daylights out of dozens of heavily armed mercenaries with whatever rusted maritime tools are within arm's reach. It's directed by Jean-Francois Richet, the man who gave us Jared Butler punching people through the fuselage of an aircraft in Plane. It runs an exact pristine 95 minutes, and as audiences log into their cinema chain apps this week to buy a ticket, not a single human being on planet Earth is pausing to ask, is the screenplay a nuanced meditation on post-capitalist supply chain logistics? Nobody cares! Nobody in human history has ever bought a ticket to a Jason Statham movie looking for a psychological ambiguity. We bought the ticket because there is a sacred unspoken social contract between Jason Statham and the human race. And that contract states, you will pay your hard-earned money, and in exchange, an aggressive bald man with a stubble shadow carved from granite will kick a bad guy through a sheet glass window while growling in a Cockney accent. And yet, if you look at modern film discourse, there is this persistent, snotty, critical urge to dismiss him. Critics look at his filmography, The Transporter, Crank, The Mechanic, Safe, The Beekeeper, Shelter, and now Mutiny, and they treat it like cinematic junk food. They ask, is Jason Statham just our generation's Jean-Claude Van Damme? Is he just modern Steven Seagal with better cardio and fewer direct-to-video laundering schemes? So today, I'm here to stand before you and present the formal, legal, cultural case for the defense. Because Jason Statham is not an accident of the algorithm. He is the last surviving practitioner of a forgotten cinematic art form. And in a Hollywood landscape that is choking on its own self-importance, Jason Statham, he is the hero we actually need. To understand where Jason Statham fits in the grand historical taxonomy of action cinema, we first have to travel back to the golden age of the 1980s and 90s, when Hollywood was ruled by a rigid two-tier caste system of violence. At the very top of the mountain sat the action Olympians, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, and Bruce Willis. These men weren't just movie stars, they were geopolitical superpowers with seven-figure biceps. They headlined massive high-concept multi-million-dollar summer blockbusters. Their films didn't just make money, they defined the zeitgeist. Terminator 2 Judgment Day practically invented modern digital VFX. Die Hard completely re-engineered the architecture of suspense and gave birth to every Die Hard in a blank movie for the next 30 years. And First Blood? That was a legitimate psychological tragedy about Vietnam veteran abandonment. These were prestigious culture-shifting tentpoles. And then, one tier down, operating in the smoky neon-lit alleyways of mid-budget cinema, sat the VHS gods, Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal. Now let's be entirely clear about what JCVD and Seagal were doing. They weren't making Terminator 2. Nobody was walking out of Bloodsport, Hard Target, or Under Siege thinking, my God, the lighting in that third act really evoked the French New Wave. Their appeal was hyper-specific, physical, and direct. Jean-Claude Van Damme was a Belgian ballet dancer turned human helicopter blade. You didn't watch Time Cop for the theoretical physics of temporal displacement. You watched it because at some point, Van Damme was going to jump up, do a full 30-degree split across a kitchen counter in his underwear, and kick an assassin in the jaw. Steven Seagal, he was a whispering mountain in a trench coat who practiced Aikido. The entire gimmick of a Seagal movie was that he was an unhittable force of nature. Bad guys would swing a lead pipe at him and Seagal would just casually grab their wrist, break their elbow in 3 places with zero facial expression, whisper a bad pun about laundry, and walk away without ever wrinkling his silk shirt.
Milk toast? Man, I always thought he had an explosive personality. Isn't that terrible?
Their films were cheap, punchy, and wildly formulaic. But here's the key. They were cult classics because they possessed zero pretension. They delivered the exact package promised on the VHS box art. And when the 2000s rolled around, that entire mid-tier of action cinema completely went extinct. Hollywood decided that every action movie had to cost $200 million, involve a multiverse, and star an actor who had to spend the next 6 months pretending to punch a tennis ball on a green screen while wearing a ping pong ball suit. Enter Jason Statham. Just look at how Jason Statham single-handedly inherited the entire VHS B-movie throne and modernized it for the 21st century. He didn't just adapt to the industry, he broke film classification entirely. To give you an idea of how singular this man is, IMDb officially recognized the Jason Statham subgenre as its own distinct category of cinema. Think about that for a second. The definitive global film database looked at over a century of cinema taxonomy, threw their hands in the air, and said, look, we can't pretend this is just a standard crime thriller. It's not an espionage film, it's a Statham film. Put it in its own classification. And they're right, because every single Statham vehicle is governed by what I like to call the law of the definitive occupational noun. The transporter, the mechanic, the beekeeper, the Meg, where the occupation is just shark puncher. And now, mutiny. Every single one of these films follows the exact same 5-step structure. Jason Statham's character is introduced doing a seemingly normal, slightly boring job. He's driving an Audi. He's repairing a boat engine. He's literally tending to a box of honeybees in a barn in Massachusetts. A completely defenseless, lovely side character, an elderly lady, a sweet niece, or a beloved mentor, gets scammed, robbed, or murdered by an absurdly rich villain with terrible hair and zero moral compass. A group of arrogant henchmen approach Jason Statham and tell him to back off. Statham gives them exactly one opportunity to walk away. He speaks in a quiet, low-register growl that sounds like gravel tumbling down an aluminum chute. He says something like,
You don't want to do this.
The henchmen laugh, and in the next 45 seconds, Statham turns a bicycle chain, a toaster, a pint glass, or a power drill into an instrument of localized orthopedic destruction. About halfway through the movie, the FBI or MI6 shows up, pulls up Statham's classified file on a computer screen, looks at the director and whispers in sheer terror, "My God, do you know who that is? He was part of a Black Ops wet work unit so secret the president doesn't even know it exists." It is the exact same movie every single time. It's been the same movie for 25 years. And you know what? It works every single time. Because unlike Steven Seagal, who stopped doing his own stunts around 98, began sitting down in every fight scene and looked like he wanted to be anywhere else, Jason Statham brings world-class, authentic physical commitment to every frame. Fun fact, Statham was a member of Britain's national diving squad for 12 years. He even competed at the Commonwealth Games. He's also practiced Wing Chun, kickboxing, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu long before he ever walked onto a movie set. When you watch Statham fight on a cargo ship in Mutiny, you are watching a man who genuinely knows where his center of gravity is. He doesn't rely on 24 rapid camera cuts per second to hide that he can't throw a hook. He takes the hits, he throws the spinning back kicks, and he carries the scene with pure visceral kinetic authority. So why are we so magnetically drawn to these movies? Why does Hollywood keep greenlighting them? And why does IMDb give him his own subgenre? Why do audiences pack into theaters on a Friday night just to watch an identical plot play out over and over again? To answer that, we have to look at the psychological state of the world we're living in right now. Every single day, we are bombarded by systemic institutional frustration. You deal with customer service AI chatbots that trap you in endless loops. You deal with corrupt landlords or utility companies that overcharge you, corporate conglomerates that harvest your data, and political systems that feel completely unaccountable to everyday citizens. Now enter the beekeeper, or safe, or mutiny. In a Jason Statham movie, the villain is usually a smug, ultra-wealthy cryptocurrency bro or a corrupt executive who runs a call center scam that steals retirement money from sweet old grandmothers. In real life, if a scammer steals your grandmother's pension, you will file a police report and then wait 6 months and get an automated email saying, "We've closed your ticket." In a Statham film, Jason Statham finds out who owns the scamming company, walks into their corporate headquarters with 2 cans of gasoline and a roll of duct tape, walks straight up to the billionaire CEO in the penthouse suite, ignoring the private security detail, ties the guy to the chair, and burns the whole operation to the ground while staring right into the camera. It's pure, unfiltered working class catharsis. It's a fantasy of immediate, unambiguous moral accountability. Statham's characters are never fighting for world domination. They don't want to save the multiverse from an interdimensional rift. They are the blue-collar Avengers who simply believe in a very basic fundamental playground rule. If you bully someone who can't defend themselves, a bald man in a tight black t-shirt is gonna come to your office and break your arm. In an era of endless, exhausting moral ambiguity, that simplicity feels like a deep, cleansing breath of fresh air. Now, what elevates Statham completely beyond the Van Damme and Siegel comparisons is his razor-sharp, self-aware comedic intelligence. A lot of 80s action stars suffered from fatal self-seriousness. They genuinely believed they were Shakespearean actors who just happened to know karate. Statham, he knows exactly what the joke is, and his genius is that he plays it with absolute deadpan sincerity. Look at Crank and Crank High Voltage. Those aren't just action movies. They are live-action Looney Tune cartoons on bath salts. The entire plot of Crank is that Statham has been injected with a synthetic Chinese poison that will stop his heart unless he keeps pumping adrenaline at maximum capacity. To stay alive, Statham has to drive a car through a shopping mall, snort nasal spray, shock himself with defibrillator paddles, and have public sex on a 50-yard line of a racetrack. Any other actor would have winked at the camera and ruined the pacing, but not Statham. And look at what Paul Feig did with him in the 2015 comedy Spy. Statham plays Rick Ford, a parody of his on-screen persona. He spends the entire movie delivering insane improvised monologues about his supposed Black Ops exploits with a straight face.
I've swallowed enough microchips and shit them back out again to make a computer. This arm has been ripped off completely and reattached with this fucking arm.
I don't know that that's possible.
He doesn't even laugh once. He plays the stupidity with the exact same stone-cold gravitas that he brings to a serious revenge thriller. He understands that the funniest way to play an action hero is to make him believe in his own mythology 100%. Hollywood is currently in the middle of a massive identity crisis. Studios are spending $300 million on CGI spectacle films that look like grey mush, while audiences are increasingly staying home because every franchise feels like homework. We are exhausted by 20 movie cinematic universes that require you to watch 3 television spin-offs just to understand why a guy in a cape is mad. Jason Statham, he doesn't give you homework. Statham gives you 95 minutes of pure, unbroken kinetic craft. He doesn't need a green screen. He doesn't need a cape. Give him a leather jacket, an old car, a cargo ship full of mercenaries, and a single grievance, and he will deliver the most satisfying 2 hours of your weekend. He is our Van Damme. He is our Seagal. But unlike him, he's never lost respect for the audience, and he's never stopped putting in the physical work. So, the next time someone rolls their eyes at a movie like Mutiny and calls it just another Jason Statham flick, look at them dead in the eye and remind them. In a world full of fake superheroes, Jason Statham is the last honest craftsman in action cinema.